One of my favorite players in the league currently has to be Ant Edwards, so it's been dope to see his continued success as the Timberwolves are now tied with the Boston Celtics for the best record in the NBA. Even with that said though, I'm not sure I can trust this Timberwolves team to get it done in the NBA playoffs, and we're going to break down why that is here today. If you guys enjoyed the video though, then make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. So last night, the Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Miami Heat by a score of 112-108 in Miami. Who else but Ant Edwards was the star of the show as he dropped 30 points in his second straight game, finishing the night with 32 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. I got to watch this game personally, and I honestly wasn't extremely impressed by any other Timberwolves starter and felt Naz Reid was the player that deserved to be commended the most behind Edwards. Despite his poor shooting night, Reid still finished with the third most points and a higher plus-minus rating than 2 Timberwolves starters. The Timberwolves also have a better defensive rating with Reid on the floor opposed to Towns for the season, so that's just something to keep in mind there. We're going to come back to how a role change for Reid could improve this team drastically, and we'll do that at the end of the video. Last night, the Timberwolves became the second team in the league to win 20 games, which is of course very impressive. However, looking at their schedule, they've beaten 3 Western Conference playoff teams. The most impressive was probably their Denver Nuggets win or their win over the second-seeded OKC Thunder. In the OKC win, I think it was just decently impressive. The reason I say decently impressive instead of impressive is because looking at the strength of schedule played for teams in the league, the Timberwolves have played the 9th easiest schedule and the Thunder have played the 10th easiest schedule this season. So the Nuggets win was impressive, don't get me wrong, but if your highest seeded victory was against a young team with a top 10 easiest schedule, I'd like to see more out of the T-Wolves. I'm sure you might have looked at their wins over the Celtics, Thunder, and Pacers on their schedule also, and I think the Celtics win was impressive for the Wolves. However, the Celtics were without Derek White, the man who in which is a part of the Celtics starting unit that has been the most effective of any lineup in the league this season, while the Celtics have also played the 5th hardest schedule. The Sixers were without Joel Embiid in the Timberwolves win over the Sixers, so I think that's all I need to say. And the Pacers were also without their best player, Tyrese Halliburton, in the Timberwolves win over the Pacers this past Saturday night. So while I think this T-Wolves team is solid, I'd like to see them beat a few more healthy playoff teams from either the East or the West first before we start calling them for real or contenders. They have a couple chances to do so with the healthy Sixers team, the Kings, and the Thunder once again coming up before the calendar flips to 2024. For the Wolves, their most impressive trait in my eye has been their defense. They have the best defensive rating in the entire league this season by a relatively sizable margin, beating the Celtics rating by 2.4 points. Even with that said, and the Timberwolves tied for the best record in the league this season, the Wolves' current starting lineup is just barely efficient this season. A lot of that has to do with the team going with Jaden McDaniels as a starter now instead of Alexander Walker. Nickeil Alexander-Walker started in 10 games that McDaniels missed, and the first game that McDaniels returned from. And that starting lineup with Alexander Walker in it has a positive 5.8 net rating opposed to the 0.39 net rating with McDaniels in the starting lineup this season. Furthermore, and also going back to Reid, I believe that Naz Reid in the starting lineup could be what the T-Wolves need to shake things up. We've heard rumblings of a Towns trade, and from looking at some of these stats, that might be what the Timberwolves need. McDaniels in there with Reid and Karl Anthony Towns yields a 67.7 net rating in 5 minutes played, so an extremely small sample size, but switching out Towns and McDaniels for Alexander Walker and Gobert yields an insane 95.2 net rating in 12 minutes played together. So also still a small sample size, but still I felt like it should be mentioned. Even keeping McDaniels as a starter with Reid and Gobert yielded a plus 40 net rating. So it simply just seems like the Timberwolves need to shift some things around, whether a trade would be what warrants them to do so or just for the sake of improving the team. Reid has been an anchor on the bench for the Wolves this season as he most recently led the team in scoring on Thursday night, while of course doing so off the bench. And it feels like the Wolves could use a shakeup in terms of who's out there with him unless they just make him a starter. Looking at the Wolves' most effective players, their 4 primary starters along with Reid, McDaniels, and Alexander Walker make up their top 7. They just don't seem to be as effective together with the way that they're currently constructed, unless you start Alexander Walker. Alexander Walker also started in the Wolves' wins over the Celtics and the Thunder, just wanted to point that out. But Shake Milton has been their least effective player this season, and when him and Reed are on the court together, they have a negative rating, and I feel like they got to have a more effective backup guard or just make some changes if they want to make that true leap into a true title contender. Despite their chances to prove themselves coming up and make that leap into a true contender, the Wolves have the 10th easiest schedule for the remainder of the season. So I think as currently constructed, I wouldn't be surprised if they get bounced out of the playoffs early. However, I feel the changes pointed out, whether it's making trades or changing the starting lineup and the bench lineup, would only benefit them and help them become a Western Conference contender for the long term. Anyway, though, let me know in the comments what you think about the Timberwolves, any players, or any topics I talked about today. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, then make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'm SCJ, and I am out. Peace.